Hey, so there are a couple things I would point out to you guys. Number one, just a reminder that when you look at a watch list like this and say, oh, I'm seeing a lot of red. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything because what happens is those will all reset at the same time. So everything could be up 20%, but if they're all Binance listings, all the Binance ones reset at 8 p.m. Eastern. All the Bitmax ones may reset at midnight. But everything in this that you're seeing here resets at the same time because they're all Binance listings, right? So when that resets, even if everything is up 20% on the day, it'll all go to zero. And then whatever happens after that is what shows up. So it might be down 1 or 2% now, but it's up 18% on the day. You know what I mean? So just something to point out. Um, all right, now, as for what I see going on. So I think we're going to correct here, but we are in a hyper bullish market. I was just going to tweet about this and point out that in a normal market, I would say that right here, we're going to get a nice healthy correction over several days, up to 18% correction potentially. We're in a hyper bullish market though, so I don't foresee that happening. I think instead we are going to go up again, but there are a couple ways it could play out. We could get a correction like we had here. Now let's take a look at what that was. That was from top to bottom. That was like a 10% correction, so that wasn't bad. It's not as bad in a normal market. I would have said, like I said, 15 to 20% dip. I would probably say 10 to 18% correction over the course of 5 to 8 days. That would be a normal daily correction. I don't see us getting a daily correction, so instead I'll look for a 4-hour correction. Now, based on the 4-hour models, you can get up to a 10% dip like we had here over the course of just a couple days, right? So this went from the top was 11 o'clock on the 8th. We pretty much bottomed out on the 10th in the morning. So like a day and a half because it went from the night of the 8th to the night of the 9th to the morning of the 10th. So we could see a similar correction to this. Now there are some other details I'm looking at here, like for instance, this last little correction, which wasn't that bad. Project Veritas. The 10% correction didn't follow with a really big pump, but we did get some really aggressive movement over the last day, right? So there is a lot of bullish potential there. We could still get an early reversal and go right back up. So I really see there's only two possibilities here. Instead of getting like a slow sideways correction that isn't particularly exciting, either we're just going to get a nice 10, 15% dump, or we're going to break up into a massive, massive pump. Because normally when we're in a position where we need to correct, I would expect that correction to happen. And when you're in a hyper bullish market where you're not going to get that correction at all, the only way to justify that sort of a lack of correction there, when all the oscillators, like right now, right, the Stochastic is really high and it's saying, hey, we're coming back down, we need to reset and bleed off that momentum. When that momentum doesn't get bled off, and when you're not getting a reset on the stochastic oscillator and other indicators, the only way for that to happen is if you are just aggressively bullish and it pumps insanely hard. So we could run right now up to 54K, which that's the 3618 extension, or the 2.618 extension is my main target for this full bull run. I think we get to 54K, then we can get a bigger multi-day correction. Until then, I just don't foresee it. I think we're going to get shorter term corrections and shorter term dips. Look what happened at the last one before this. So we had this one I just showed you, right? The same exact thing happened here. We had a similar sized correction of 7, 8, 9% over the course of 1 to 2, maybe 3 days at the most. And that's what we're seeing here on these corrections. Same thing here. Decent sized dump, but it was over the course of just a couple days. I don't think we're going to get that week-long correction. We were getting that sort of action over here. That was a much longer correction, but I don't think that's going to happen now. And we're looking at it at a different scale, of course, so I can zoom out to the daily and show you more. Well, when I get home, we could do a video and I could do an Elliott wave count and update it, because right now we are still in wave 3, the main wave 3 that takes us up to the 2618 extension. Breaking it down into a smaller wave count would be helpful. Looking at this one on the 4-hour, I mean, it's straight up parabolic, but I don't think this is actually going to give us a big correction until we get the main target. So I think we're going to see a smaller correction. It'll give us an opportunity to see some of the other assets in the market, and a lot of the altcoins can reduce some of their momentum so they won't be quite so overbought and give us a better potential entry for that next leg up. What you want to see, depending on what time frame you're looking at, in this case on the 4 hour, that would be more shorter term stuff. On the daily, I'd like to get closer, if I could, to the Ichimoku dynamic supports. In this case, it's not going to happen. The last time we had a bigger correction, what happened? It went exactly to the 55 EMA. I mean, exactly. Look, these two candles almost hit, like, to the dollar, to the Ichimoku dynamic supports, and that's my main support, as you guys know. So if we were to correct here and come down and tap that 55 EMA, I'd be going all in right there. So we're going to correct. I don't think we're getting one of these bigger corrections like we had here. I think we're going to get another one of these smaller corrections like we had recently. But I can make more sense of it when I get on a bigger screen. I could do an Elliott wave count, update my last analysis, and then I could show you what I'm thinking. But if you're looking at what happened the last few times, we're on a similar path, just like this. Got that arc, and you had a correction, and now this arc is much smaller. I think it takes us all the way to 54K. I think we're going to keep going to 54K before we get a bigger correction. But for now, at least immediately, what do I expect and what can we do with our current trades? I think with my open trades, when I get home, assuming the market doesn't tank in the next 10 minutes, I might take profit on the stuff that I'm up on the most, right? I could probably reduce my positions by like 50%. I'm sure that we're going to correct to some degree, because if we don't, it's going to be an explosive pump, right? So more than likely, we're going to get the correction. It's just not going to be a huge dump, and it's not going to take more than a day and a half. I could buy back in, so I can enter trades in a day and a half at a much lower price, and I could sell half of my position now, still maintain a position, and then get in more. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reduce my positions in my altcoins that I'm up a lot in, and then in a day and a half, if they correct along with BTC and the whole market dips and cools off for 36 hours, then I can get back in at a lower price. I'm not at the point now where I expect one of these 15% dumps on the Bitcoin, 15% dumps on Bitcoin, which would translate to the entire market. If I was expecting one of those longer multi-day significant dumps, I would liquidate all of my short-term positions and then buy back in at a lower price. So I'll get into it in more detail when I get home, and I'll see if I can make sense of it. And just to caution you, I might not have a perfect count. The analysis might not be perfect because when you are parabolic in a hyper bullish market, it's really difficult to get a precision model because you're not seeing the normal corrections and you're maintaining that overbought status for such an extended period. It makes it difficult to use the oscillators like you normally would to anticipate reversals because you're not getting repetitive trend reversals. You're not seeing that repetitive model where you get the same up and down sequence so you can predict it happening again. In order to see that, you have to pull out to the higher time frames. I talked about this in the live stream 2 nights ago. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you check it out if you're in premium. Actually, I also shared that with Basic. I posted it in my Vader's Post channel, I think, and tagged Basic members. So you guys actually have access to that premium live stream from a couple nights ago. All right. Anyway, that's what I got for you right now for my trades that are up a lot, obviously. So like Key coming back down quite a bit, correcting here. Now this one, if you look at the 4 hour, as long as this doesn't dump too far, I don't think it's going to go all the way back to my entry. So I'm not even going to sell it. I'm going to let it ride. Oh, wait, I did sell some. Shit. That's fine. I sold like 30% of my position. So, but the rest of it I'm going to hold. I'm not going to sell anymore. But it's had a pretty decent return back down. I don't think it's going all the way back to the entry, but I placed my stop loss there just in case. And if it dumps, it dumps. I don't really care. But a lot of these trades that I'm up a ton on, Sushi, again, big breakout pump today, did really well. Sold some of that as well. So I sold about 30% of those two, my two newest entries that pumped really big. And then I even added on to UMA and UNI. UNI is still holding. This trend line is an absolute boss. I don't think it's ever going to die. This is incredible. This trend line looks so goddamn beautiful. So I'm going to let these trades go. And I may even get into some new ones. Again, something you want to look at is when everything else is in the middle of a correction. If you can catch something that's starting a bullish move up, you can get in. Like right now, UMA is not a good example, but let's say, for instance, right, UMA had the Stoke really low, like this down here. We'll look where the cursor is on the screen. So say the Stoke was there just turning up bullish, while everything else was in a correction like it is now. I would still get into it. I don't care if Bitcoin's correcting, because in that situation, we would end up where UMA is the one thing in the green while everything else is in the red. It's sort of the inverse of what I saw coming with BNB. I told you guys I liquidated my entire BNB position. Every BNB that I had long-term storage and everything, I liquidated because I thought that we got to a point where we were going to correct. We were going to have some pretty big holders liquidating positions to take profit, given the size of the run that it just took. I even suspected that CZ himself may be dumping a little bit. And ever since then, when I called that at the tippy top, everything else was green and this guy was red. So imagine the inverse of that. Everything else is red and you're getting into the green one. Sort of like what we're seeing with BNB now. I may even consider getting into BNB considering the fact that the Stoke is fully reset. It's nice and low. Let me see what the daily looks like. It's probably still high. Yeah, the daily is still way up there. If I made a trade on BNB, it would be a short-term trade. I wouldn't enter as a long-term hold because the daily is still so overbought. But you guys get what I'm pointing out, right? So you can use what's happening in the market and look for the odd man out and anticipate those plays when everyone's like, whoa, how did you know XYZ was going to go up? Everything was tanking. That's how you spot them. So we'll look at some of those too when I get home. Take a look at BTC in more detail, and I'll see if I can spot any altcoins that might be safe for an entry during the correction. Those gems that will go up while everything else goes down. I love spotting those, so we'll take a look and see if we can find any. And if not, just make sure you have a stop loss in place. Make sure you take profit. And after you take profit and you set your stop losses, we can let the market correct. We can get one of those smaller corrections of up to 10%, but no more. Once things stabilize, you get back in and go for a run. And if it does start on a massive super pump and it cancels out that correction early, you can buy into whatever you want. It doesn't matter because everything's going to be going up 100% if that happens. All right. It's a good general summary for now. We'll dive into it more when I get home. And in the meantime, trade safe.